Let's be honest, people lie. Not just strangers, your partner, your best friend, even your own family. And the worst part? You often know they're lying, but you still smile, still nod, still believe. Why? Because it's easier to live with a lie than to face the truth that someone you love could betray you. I know this because I've been there. That sinking feeling in your gut, the way their words didn't match their eyes, the awkward laugh when things got serious. And yet I stayed silent because I didn't want to lose the relationship. But in doing that, I lost something even more important: my clarity, my self-respect, my peace. If someone deceives you, let it not be because you refuse to see. Inspired by Epictetus, the Stoics taught us this. Truth is rarely comfortable, but it's always freeing. They didn't tell us to walk around suspicious of everyone. They told us to open our eyes, to sharpen our perception, because only those who see clearly can choose wisely. Most lies don't come with warning signs. They show up wrapped in smiles, in perfectly told stories, in vague answers, in nervous laughter. The signs are subtle, but they're there if you're willing to see them. Here's the hard truth. Lies don't hurt because they're lies. They hurt because you believe them, because you wanted to. And that's what liars count on. Your hope, your heart, your hesitation. You can't build peace on an illusion. Seneca. So ask yourself, do you want to feel good? Or do you want to know the truth? Because once you know, you can't unknow, but you can move forward. Wiser, stronger, unshaken. This isn't about being paranoid. It's about being clear. It's about becoming stoic. And today we're going to do just that. Let's uncover the 7 subtle ways people lie to you, and how to finally stop lying to yourself. Part 1. They change the subject when the truth gets close. It always starts small. You bring up something important, a question that matters. Maybe it's, where is this going? Why did you disappear last weekend? Why does your story keep changing? And just like that, they pivot. Now they're talking about dinner plans, or the weather, or some random thing they saw on Instagram. It feels harmless, maybe even smooth, but deep down something shifts. You feel it? They're dodging something real. I used to believe they were just nervous, or distracted, or afraid of confrontation. I made excuses for them over and over. But here's what I've learned the hard way. When someone keeps avoiding serious conversations, they're not protecting peace. They're protecting their secret. I saw it firsthand. I was with someone who, every time I asked a real question about the future, about trust, he'd steer the conversation into anything but the truth. He was good at it. Too good. And I didn't realize what was happening until everything fell apart. We suffer more from avoiding the truth than from the truth itself. Stoic inspired. The Stoics were clear about this. Avoidance is a form of dishonesty, not just toward others, but toward ourselves. When someone keeps changing the subject, they're really saying, I'm not ready to be seen. And when we let them get away with it, we're saying, it's okay to keep hiding. Here's the thing. Most lies don't sound like lies. They sound like silence, or distractions, or a well-timed joke. But silence, when the truth is needed, isn't peace, it's poison. The Stoics teach us this. Real peace doesn't come from avoiding tension. It comes from facing reality. I'll never forget the moment. I asked someone straight up, are you hiding something from me? He paused, locked eyes with me for just a second, then smiled and said, you hungry? Want sushi? That was it. The moment I should have seen it, but I didn't want to, so I stayed quiet, and the lie grew louder. Here's the brutal truth. People don't change the subject to protect you. They do it to protect the lie. And every time you let it slide, you're training yourself to settle for less than honesty. The Stoics had a word for this kind of self-betrayal: turning away from reason. Because reason demands clarity, and clarity demands courage. So the next time someone dodges the conversation, pause. Ask yourself, what am I being redirected from? Because their deflection might be your last chance to open your eyes. This isn't about chasing drama. It's about choosing truth over illusion. It's about becoming someone who sees clearly, even when it hurts, Because here's what I believe. The people who truly love you won't hide from truth. They'll stand in it with you, even when it's hard, even when it's messy. But if someone always runs, maybe it's time you stop chasing, because truth doesn't hide. And love, real love, never fears honesty. Part 2, they get defensive fast. Sometimes truth doesn't run away, it fights back. You ask a simple question, casual, like, hey, why didn't you mention this before? Is there something going on I should know about? And suddenly, boom, they snap. They get irritated. They accuse you of being too much. They flip the script like you're the problem. Why don't you trust me? You're always so paranoid. Can't you just relax? But here's what I've learned. People don't get defensive over nothing. They get defensive when they feel exposed. There's a saying that hits hard. A hit dog will holler. If someone's reaction is too strong, too loud, too sudden, you probably just got too close to the truth. I've been there. I once asked someone kindly about something that didn't add up. Just a calm question. No accusation. And instead of clarity, I got a storm. He made me feel like I was the bad guy for simply wanting to understand. And that's when I realized it wasn't about my tone. It was about his guilt. The Stoics teach us that our job isn't to control others. It's to control ourselves. When someone wrongs you, the harm is theirs. Your only task is not to join them. Marcus Aurelius. But we do. We fold. We soften. We second-guess ourselves. All because we're afraid of making a scene. But here's the truth. Peace that depends on silence isn't peace. It's pressure. If someone blows up every time you ask a real question, they're not protecting your relationship. They're protecting their secrets. I had a friend like that. Every time I asked about a project, he'd get short, irritated, on edge. At first, I thought maybe he was just stressed. But then I looked closer. The anger wasn't random, it was rehearsed. Weeks later, I found out he'd been hiding things all along. When someone gets defensive without cause, they're not reacting to your question. They're reacting to the truth they're scared you'll find. But here's where most people mess up. They back off. They take the blame. They walk away thinking they asked the wrong thing. But a Stoic doesn't run from the uncomfortable. A Stoic sees through the performance. Because when truth is present, there's no need for drama. I've learned, if someone is honest, they'll give you answers. If they're guilty, they'll give you attitude. So when someone flares up over something small, don't match their energy. Stay calm. Stay steady. Watch closely. Because defensiveness is a mask. And if you're quiet long enough, it'll slip. Next time someone snaps at your honesty, ask yourself, what are they trying so hard to protect? And why do I feel bad just for wanting the truth? Because honesty doesn't need defense. Only lies do. And if someone can't handle your clarity, they're not ready for your presence. Next up, part 3. When liars fear being found out, they hide behind vague words. Let's learn to read between the lines and cut through the fog. Part 3. When someone's answers are vague, they're probably hiding something. You ask a simple, honest question. No accusation. No pressure. Just, who was it exactly? When did it happen? So what did you do then? And what do you get? A cloud of vague words and poetic distractions. As if they're writing a riddle instead of giving you an answer. I don't really remember. It's kind of complicated. There were a lot of people involved. They talk a lot, but say nothing at all. I've been there. I had a friend once, constantly talking about these huge business deals he was working on. Every time I asked specifics, who's the client? What company? What stage are the negotiations at? He'd just laugh and say, oh, it's still early, kinda under wraps, can't say much yet. Weeks went by. No contract, no proof, no client, just smoke. And I kept inhaling it like it was real. The one who avoids clarity fears what clarity will reveal. Stoic insight. In Stoic philosophy, we're taught this. The virtuous person doesn't fear details. They live in truth, not in clever detours. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, be like the daylight, clear, straightforward, without disguise. So why do people keep hiding behind vague answers? Because vagueness is the safest hiding place for the dishonest. It's like smoke. You try to grab it, nothing solid. They slip behind their foggy phrases, and if you're not grounded in reason, you'll follow them into the mist. I used to be that person. I didn't want to make things awkward. I was afraid of offending them. I didn't want to be seen as suspicious. So I smiled. I nodded. I convinced myself, maybe I was just overthinking. But you know what's scarier than being suspicious? Living in a relationship where you're afraid to know the truth. We are not hurt by the truth. We are hurt because we didn't face it when we had the chance. Seneca. Stoicism teaches us this. Courage isn't about being loud. It's about calmly confronting what others dance around. If someone can't answer a direct question, it's usually not because they can't. It's because they don't want you to know. That's not just a detail. That's a warning. That's a siren going off in the silence. Since learning this, I've changed how I respond. I don't fall for long-winded speeches. I ask again, could you be more specific? I need a clearer answer. That didn't actually answer what I asked. And I've learned something powerful. Honest people don't get uncomfortable when you ask for clarity. They don't get flustered. They don't panic, because they have nothing to hide. But the ones who do, they'll fidget, stall, circle back to cliches like, it's kind of hard to explain. It's not that simple. It's a long story. No, that's not because it's complicated. That's because they're building a maze with their words, hoping you never find the exit. The one who resists the question is the one who needs to be questioned most. Real-life wisdom. This isn't just a skill to spot liars. It's a mindset to build a life founded on truth. No one's forcing you to trust everyone, but you must trust yourself when your gut reacts to vagueness. Let me leave you with a question you should always keep in your pocket. Why is this person so uncomfortable giving me a straight answer? And if they can't, then you need to stand taller. Ask deeper. Because a Stoic doesn't live in doubt. They live in verified truth, in clear words, in a presence that refuses to be sidetracked. Ready for part 4? Let's expose those stories that sound a little too perfect. Because the smoother the tale, the higher the chance it's a lie in disguise. Part 4. If a story sounds too perfect, probably is a lie. Ever heard a story so perfect it made you pause? Every detail landed. Every beat hit. Not a single crack. No loose ends. It flowed like a Hollywood script. But here's the thing, it wasn't real life. I once knew someone, let's call him Eric. Eric always had a story. Big business wins. Spontaneous road trips. Unbelievable meant-to-be moments. He spoke with this gleam in his eye, like every sentence was made for a trailer. I signed the deal as the sun set behind the skyline. The CEO shook my hand and said, "You're the one I've been looking for." And you know what? I believed him. Not because I was naive, but because I wanted to believe. I wanted the world to be that magical. People aren't fooled by words. They're fooled by their desire to believe. Epictetus. And that's the weak spot liars exploit. They don't tell you stories to connect. They tell them to dazzle, to hijack your imagination, to control how you feel, not how you think. But here's reality. Life's not that neat. Real people don't speak in rehearsed monologues. Real stories are messy. They come with pauses, repetition, and rough edges. And it's those imperfections that signal authenticity. I remember one day I started asking Eric questions. What company was that again? Where exactly did you meet the CEO? Was anyone else there to witness it? That's when the story started unraveling. Suddenly details didn't match. He stumbled. His tone changed. And just like that, his movie collapsed. The truth doesn't need polish. Only lies need a spotlight. Marcus Aurelius. Here's what you need to know. When someone's story sounds too smooth, too cinematic, it's not a confession. It's a performance. A lie in a tuxedo. Stoics know this. They don't look for the prettiest story. They seek the truest one. They don't ask, did this make me feel good? They ask, did this help me see clearly? Because the truth doesn't always sparkle. It doesn't need violins. It just needs courage to be seen for what it is. So next time someone tells you something that sounds too perfect, Pause. Don't be swept away. Don't clap just because they made it sound nice. Ask one simple question. Really? Can you walk me through that moment again? And watch closely. Not just what they say, but how they say it. If their voice shifts, if the details fade, if their eyes dodge your gaze, you don't need hard proof. You already have what Stoics call discernment, the practiced art of cutting through illusion. The truth stands naked. Only lies need costumes. Here's what I've learned. Step back when something feels too crafted. Ask small, simple questions. Trust how the truth sounds and how the lie trembles. Because honest people aren't flawless storytellers. They're flawed humans who aren't afraid to admit it. So when someone gives you a story too smooth to be real, don't be afraid to dig, to challenge, to question. Because truth isn't always pretty, but it always stands the test of clarity. And clarity is what Stoics live for. Coming up in part 5, we decode the language that doesn't need words. Body language. Part 5. When the body turns away, the truth shows up. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone? They're looking at you, speaking to you, but their body starts turning away? Maybe just slightly. Barely noticeable. But something inside you feels it. That strange distance. Like they're right there, and yet already halfway gone. I've been there. I ignored the signs. In a relationship I thought was safe, every time I brought up something serious, their body would shift, subtle but clear. They weren't just uncomfortable. They were trying to escape. A liar doesn't need to speak. Their body will always betray them first. This is not philosophy in theory. This is Stoicism in practice. We tend to believe that words are the only form of communication. But they're not. Not even close. Body language is truth, unfiltered. It's the draft before editing. It's where fear, shame, and conflict expose themselves without permission. And when someone lies, their body reacts first. Liars rarely face you directly. They avoid eye contact like it might reveal their soul. They physically shift away, creating a safe zone, where their words might be heard but never fully believed. I once had a colleague who did exactly this. Anytime I asked about a delayed project, he'd cross his arms, glance away, tilt his chair slightly to the side. Still smiling, still talking, but his body screamed, "I'm hiding something." Turns out he was. You don't need to interrogate someone. Just notice when they can't look you in the eye. Marcus Aurelius would have seen it instantly. We ignore these signs because we don't want to be that person. We don't want to seem paranoid. But Stoicism doesn't teach paranoia. It teaches clarity. To see things as they are, not as we hope they'll be. When someone turns away from you mid-conversation, don't rush to accuse. Just observe. Ask yourself, what truth are they afraid to face? Why does their body want to run? I started doing this, saying nothing, just watching. Not aggressively. Not accusing. Just being present. And you know what? Silence made them more nervous than questions ever could. Because in that silence, they felt seen. In life, you'll meet people like this. They'll smile. They'll talk. They'll act like everything's fine. But their body will beg to differ. The body is the most honest messenger of the mind. And believe me, when someone physically turns away, they're not just avoiding you. They're avoiding a truth they can't handle. So what do? Don't jump to conclusions. Watch longer. Don't push for answers. Let silence do the work. And most importantly, don't dismiss your intuition. Stoicism doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. Not everyone who turns away is lying. But if it happens again and again, at the very moments where truth matters most, take it as a warning. Because deception doesn't always need words. Sometimes all it takes is a body that slowly turns away. Up next in part 6, we'll expose another favorite tactic of liars, using laughter to dodge the truth. Part 6, not every laugh is honest, when laughter kills the truth. Have you ever tried opening up, speaking from the heart, and all you got in return was a laugh? You say, "I feel like something's off between us." And they just chuckle. "Oh, come on, you're overthinking. We're fine." But no, you're not fine. And that laugh, it's not comfort. It's a defense mechanism. I've been in that kind of situation. In a relationship where every time I tried to have a serious conversation, they'd turn it into a joke. You're being dramatic. Haha, you've been reading too much philosophy again. And the hard truth I learned? If someone can't be serious when you're hurting, they don't deserve your trust. In Stoic philosophy, Epictetus once said, "The weak hide from the truth by laughing at it. Laughter becomes a layer of paint over deep cracks. But that paint doesn't last, because eventually, the cracks show." Laughter is supposed to bring joy, but when it's used to avoid the truth, it becomes a toxic mask. I kept trying to talk things through, but the more I tried, the more I felt like I was talking to a wall that just knew how to smile. It didn't listen. It didn't connect. It only deflected. And here's the painful realization. When someone laughs to dodge you, you're left feeling alone. Laughter in many cases is fear in disguise. They laugh because they're afraid. Afraid to explain. Afraid to take responsibility. Afraid to look in the mirror. I remember once telling someone I cared about, "I feel like you're no longer building a future with me." She laughed and said, "You've really been reading too much Marcus Aurelius." That laugh? It hit like a bucket of cold water on a fire I was desperately trying to keep alive. But what comes after that laugh? Distance. Emotional coldness. And then one day, you're sitting next to each other, but feeling miles apart. Stoicism doesn't teach us to be harsh. It teaches us to be real. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "There's nothing more frightening than a relationship where silence is filled with fake laughter." So here's what I've learned. When someone laughs at your pain or your sincerity, they're choosing escape over engagement. So what should you do? Don't lash out. Don't raise your voice. Just ask one calm, powerful question. Why do you find that funny? That question, simple as it is, carries more weight than any accusation. It stops people in their tracks. It forces them to look inward. And if they still dodge it, you already have your answer. Stoicism teaches us, we can't control others, but we can control our standards. If you value truth, you can't settle for shallow. If you want a relationship that's real, you can't let laughter become a shield against what matters most. Here's the question you need to ask. Do you want something comfortable or something authentic? The truth may sting, but it heals. Fake peace may feel light, but it rots the connection from within. Bottom line, laughter isn't always joy. Sometimes it's the siren call of avoidance. Remember, if someone always turns serious issues into jokes, they're hiding. If you always have to go easy just to be heard, you're shrinking your worth. If you leave every talk feeling more distant, you're not connecting, you're drifting. See you in part 7, the final subtle sign, when vagueness becomes betrayal. And remember this, truth, however hard, is worth more than any lie wrapped in a smile. Part 7, vague words, clear betrayals, when ambiguity hides the truth. Sometimes people don't need to lie to deceive you. All they need to do is stay vague. Ask a question like, "So what exactly happened?" And they reply with, "Oh, it's complicated. I don't really have the details yet. Let's not worry about it right now." No names, no timelines, just a fog of words meant to keep you confused. I used to fall for those answers, not because I was naive, but because I wanted to believe they weren't hiding anything. But here's the truth. People speak vaguely not because they don't know, but because they don't want you to know. You can feel it, like holding onto a rope that's slowly slipping through your hands. You ask, "Who were you with?" And they say, "Just a friend." You press, "Which friend?" "Oh, just someone I used to know." Doesn't matter. But deep down, you know it does. Because if there's nothing to hide, then why not just say it? The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The honest man has nothing to fear from being known." Vagueness, on the other hand, is the language of fear. Fear of truth, fear of confrontation, and fear of accountability. I was once in a relationship where things started off crystal clear. Open communication, shared dreams. But slowly her answers grew hazy. Plans became up in the air. Texts went unanswered with, "Sorry, I've been busy." Any talk of the future? Met with, "Let's just enjoy the present." I didn't want to believe it meant anything, So I said nothing. And in that silence, I slowly lost myself. Why? Because I traded clarity for comfort. I made peace with confusion so I didn't have to face the truth. But the cruelest part? When the truth finally broke through, I realized I had known it all along. I just didn't want to admit it. Seneca once said, "The wise man does not avoid difficult questions. He faces them because he knows he has nothing to lose by telling the truth." Ambiguity is how people delay responsibility. They don't say yes. They don't say no. They leave you hanging. Because in the fog, they control the narrative. You wait. You guess. You hope. But here's what Stoicism teaches us. When someone truly values you, they don't leave you drowning in uncertainty. Ask yourself, why can't they just answer directly? Why are you always the one confused? Why do you feel drained, yet still act like everything's okay? Not every lie is loud. Sometimes a vague answer, repeated enough times, becomes a quiet betrayal. I used to stay silent. I used to accept it. But when I finally asked for clarity, everything fell apart. And you know what? That wasn't the end. That was my freedom. Here's what I've learned. If someone truly cares, they won't keep you guessing. If they respect you, they'll give you clear answers. If they don't, vagueness isn't a habit. It's a choice. So what should you do? Don't settle for half-truths. Don't feel guilty for needing answers. And never lose yourself just to keep someone who refuses to be honest. Stay with me for the final part, where we take all these signs and transform them into one powerful choice. To live a life guided not by illusions, but by clarity, strength, and truth. When you look back at all the signs, the forced smile, the vague answers, the sidelong glance, the nervous tone, you realize something. Lies were never that complicated. They were always there. Small, subtle, but real. The problem wasn't that we didn't see them. It's that we didn't want to. Because facing the truth often hurts more than believing the lie. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be cold. It teaches you to see clearly and act with dignity. A true Stoic doesn't live to please others. They live by one principle. If it's not true, it has no place in my mind. I've accepted vague excuses just to hold on to someone I loved. I've closed my eyes to the truth because I didn't want to lose them. But the truth doesn't need your belief to be real. And the moment I stopped avoiding it, I stopped being someone's victim and became the leader of my own life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Let what truly matters guide you, not what's comfortable." You can't change other people. You can't force them to be honest. But you can choose how you respond. You can walk away without shouting. You can let go without putting on a show. And you can rebuild a life grounded in truth, not illusion. If you've ever had that gut feeling, if you've ever known deep down but didn't dare to believe, if you've ever stayed silent just to keep the peace, it's time to wake up. Start with one small step. Stop ignoring your instincts. You deserve a life that's clear, honest, and rooted in your values. If this message speaks to you, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe to keep growing stronger, clearer, and more stoic day by day.